Day everyone. So we are here to learn about another lesson for Python programming. We will be talking about try except block is used to handle exceptions. These exceptions are errors that may arise during the execution of a program. So these are the main topics. We have here the main topics of try except block. We have 8. We will be tackling about the try except, the except block, the catching all exceptions, the else with try except, the finally block, the racing exception, the custom exception, and the exception chaining. Now, let's have the number 1. So what is a try except? Try except is used to wrap the code that might throw an exception. So if any error occurs with the try, ayan, kapag mayroong error dyan, the Python will immediately jump the correspond except block to handle that error. So that is number 1. The number 2, the except block. The except block is executed if an error occurs in the try block. So you can specify the type of exception that you want to catch. Pwede ditong specific kung ano ang error na pwede nyong kunin niya. Okay, so yun yung meaning. So the number 3 is catching all exceptions. Is you can catch all exceptions with a generic block by omitting the specific exception name. So mayroong exception name. However, this should be used carefully since it can also catch unexpected error, okay, making the debugging harder. Well, the number 4, using the else with try except. So si else block can be used in conjunction with try except code that could run only if no exception are raised. Okay, pagkatapos nito, dito na siya pupunta kay else. While the number 5 is the finally block. Finally block is used to execute code that should run no matter what, whether an exception occurred or not. It is often used to clean up operations like closing files, or network connection. Okay? So si number 6 is the raising exception. You can manually raise an exception in Python using the raise keyword. Okay. Yan yung gagamitin natin kung gagawa tayo ng raise using exception. Dito race na pabilisan na kung sinong mauna. So this is useful when you want to trigger an exception based on a specific condition. Okay? Specific condition. So yan si number 6. Si number 7 is the custom exception. So you can define your own exception types by creating a new class that inherits from the built-in exception class. So this is useful for creating a specific types of error in our programs. And last is the exception chaining. So exception chaining, Python allows you to chain exception using the race from syntax, okay, which help in providing more context when one exception leads to another. Okay? Leads to another. So those are the main topics in try except block. So now let's learn how to code these 8 topic. So that's all on my presentation, and now we will proceed to our sample codes. Thank you for listening. Okay guys, good day everyone. So nandito tayo ngayon para alamin ang exception handling in Python. So mayroon tayong example dito. We have here an example of try except block in our function. So let's discuss the code here. So dito we have a function divide that takes two parameters, the dividend and the divisor. So the dividend is the number to be divided, and the divisor is the number by which the dividend is divided. Now in our try except block dito guys, if you can see the code inside the try block keyword, so don't forget the colon, yung inside niya attempts to perform a division operation. So we have here a variable is equal to dividend slash the divisor. So this is a computation, no? It's a computation to get our result. Okay? So yung pangalawang line is it prints the result if there is no error in our formula. Pero if you will see this one, meron niyang error. So ito na papasok si except block. So si except block catches a specific error. So anong specific error yan? Zero division error as E, no? So the zero division error which happens when the divisor is 0, dividing by 0. Ito si divisor, no? Pag divide mo to by 0, it is an error. So dividing by 0 is not allowed in mathematics. Alam natin yan in math. So if this error occurs, it will print a custom error message. An arithmetic exception occurred. So these details or this error will follow and stored in our E variable. Okay, so dyan lalabas kung anong error yan. So, an arithmetic exception error occurred. So, ilalabas niya kung anong error dito. No? In a string value. Ngayon, dito naman, sa ating if condition, so this block ensures that the divide 10 and 0 function is being called when the code will run directly. So here it tries to divide 10 by 0, which would cause the 0 division. No? Since the division by 0 is not allowed by the program and jumps to our 0 division error. If mayroong error yan, and i-display niya kung anong error message niya. Okay? Ito, to confuse kayo, this is our main block, no? Main block lang natin yan. Okay, so now let's run our example. Ayan. So, i-run natin. Ayan. So, base sa code natin, since the divisor natin is 0, so yung error niya lalabas division by 0. Okay? So, ngayon, i-change natin yung value into 2 kasi kung titingnan natin, ito 10 yung value niya, tapos divide natin by 2, so yung output will be, the result is 5. So yun yung paggamit ng exception handling. Hello again, so we are here to talk about our main topics of try exception handling. So now, let's talk about the number 1 in my lecture. Let's talk about the try block. So the try block, ito, it's an example of our try block. So yung try block natin, so in this case, if an error occurs on our try block, pupunta siya ng except block. So it will just only skip here and go to our except block. But if there is no an error, so it will, the try block will execute and runs normally and prints out our result over here. Okay? So yan. So if we're going to run this application, ano yung result niya? So since there's no error on this statement, no, 10 divided by 2, so it will be 5, right? So let's run the application. And see whether what would be the result. So here we have run the code, and there, so the result is 5.0. So that's all on the try block. Now we'll be talking about on the except block. So the except block, ito yung example natin. So in this statement, kung makikita natin, pareho kanina, yung example ko ng exception handling, since we use function, ito nilagay natin sa try. So in our try block, okay, so result is equal, ito yung computation, result is equal to 10 divided by 0. That we all know that in mathematics, when we divide, we can divide by 0. So it will skip on this statement and go to the except 0 division error, and it will display that you can't divide by 0. Ito yung ipiprint niya sa output niya, no? So let's test. So there, so when we run the program, you see that it skipped on the try block and proceed to the error 0 division error, and it displays the message, prints the message, you can divide by 0. So in except also, we can do multiple exceptions, no? To catch specific errors. Okay, so here in this code, I just only, hindi ako naglagay ng statement on my try block. I just only present that we can do multiple exception here. So ito, ano yung kinokot niya? It is the type error. So it's very specific. Kapag may mali sa type, pag type mo, dinidisplay niya, you caught it type error. And dito naman sa value error, so kapag hindi type error naman yung problem, then yung value naman yung problem mo, so it will display caught a value error. So yan yung paggawa ng multiple exception. Hello guys, so now we will be talking about the number 3, the main topic of our try exception handling. So I have here an example on the number 3 that talks about the catching all exceptions. So if you can see in our except block, there's no name on it, no? You cannot identify what kind of error occurred as long as it is just an error. So it's catching all the errors, but it would be difficult for you to determine what kind of error is it, because since it catches all exceptions, right? So right now on our try block, in here our statement is on the formula result is equal to 10 over string 2. So since our device was a string value, then it raises a type error, no? Because it is a string. Now it will skip and display our except block and prints an error word. So if we will simulate this one, we will run this code. Okay, let's run to see what would be the output. Okay. So now, based on the print error, since our type error is string 2, our divisor is string 2, and it cannot be divided because it is a string value, not a whole number. So since a type error, then it's just only a general exception, a generic, and it captures all exception, and it prints whatever the statement inside that except. So the output is an error occurred. See? So that is our example code. So now we are on the number 4. 4 is we are using the else with try except. Else with try except. So we have here an example code. As you can see, this one. So this is our code. So if you see in our code, so here our try block. Okay. So in our try block, this is where the code tries to perform the operation 10 divided by 2, which the Python checks if any exception or errors occur during this division. So if there is no error, then it continues to the else. Hindi siya pupunta dito sa except. Zero division error dito kay else. After completing this division 10 divided by 2. So in our except naman, etong statement natin, if there is an error happen here, a division 0 division error would be raised. Erasing this exception, the except block would be executed and prints the division by 0 and stopping any further execution going to our else block. But since our try block, the operation is 10 divided by 2, not 0 or any type of value there, then the except block will not be triggered, and it will just only proceed to the else block. So now here sa else block naman natin, so if there's no exception occur, then the else block will run and prints the division was successful, and the result will be displayed here. The result variable, so the operation divided by 2 is equal to 5, then it will display the 5. And that's all for the try except else. We are now on the number 5 of our main topics of exception handling, and we will be talking about the finale block. So I have here an example code of the finale block. So how does finale block works? On this side, we have intended to put an error which is on our operation 10 divided by 0 is cannot be divided. We cannot divide this one in a mathematical equation because this would be an error. because of this, it will raise to the zero division error, which will be execute the exception will be execute the zero division error and prints the division by zero block, okay, in this statement. And the finale block contains that runs regardlessly whether an exception occurred or not. Okay. So, ibig sabihin, kahit wala siyang error, dito kay try block, kahit mayroon siyang error kay exception raised to zero division error, and i-execute pa rin niya si finale block, and it will print this will always execute. So yun, see the finale block kung paano gamitin. To test the output, okay, so dito, ayan, since the operation is 10 divided by 0, cannot be divided by 0 in our mathematical operation, then it raises the zero division error and it will print the division by 0. Okay, so after that, it will execute the finale block even if it has an exception. Okay. That's why it prints this will always execute. So that's it. Punta na tayo kay number 6, and si number 6 ay si raise exception. No? So paano natin gamitin si raise exception? So eto, mayroon tayong example ng code wherein nandyan si raise, pero alamin natin kung ano ang code na ito one by one. Okay. So dito, mayroon tayong function. Yung pangalan ng function natin is divide. And mayroon tayong dalawang arguments na si A and B. No? So A and B is our numerator and the B is our denominator. So inside this function is mayroon tayong conditional statement and return. Okay? So si condition natin, if the value of B is equal to 0, if B is 0, it raises the zero division error. So execute niya, ayan si raise, execute niya that you cannot divide by 0. So si raise is used to manually trigger this exception once the value is equal to B is equal to 0. If B is not equal to 0, then it will return with the operation A divided by B. Okay? So now, ito naman si try natin. Try divide yung parameters 10 and 0. So this attempts to execute, tatawagin niya si function natin divide by, it will execute the 10 divided by 0. But since our B value is equal to 0, then the function raises a zero division error and control passes to the except block. Okay. Ito, except block, kasi tinaw niya, erase zero division error as E. So ngayon, since it's erased on the try block, nag-erase siya dyan, it will print now the E. Kasi as E, zero division as E. So ano ba si E? Yan, zero division error. Yung i-preprint niya is yung message ni zero division error na ni-erase, that you cannot divide by 0 from the exception raised in our function. So yun. No? So once a divide function checks that the division by 0 and raises an error if b is equal to 0, then the try except block handles this error by printing the custom message from the raise exception. So that's all. Now let's see the output on this code. Ayan. So i-run natin. And ito ngayon yung output niya. So tinawag talaga si zero division error ni raise kasi the value of b is equal to 0. And in-execute naman except block, which is tinawag natin si zero division error as E, and i-print niya yung message ni E, which contains that you cannot divide by 0. So nandito na tayo ngayon sa number 7 na si custom exception, no? So mayroon tayong sample code na custom exception. So ayan yung example code natin. So ano naman ang ibig sabihin ng code nito and how to use the custom exception. Okay. So si custom exception, based on this code, ayan, dito tayo sa class. Okay, so on our class, so this code is a new exception class called my custom error. My custom error which inherits from the built-in exception class. No? So the inheriting from the exception means that our my custom error will behave like other exception but is uniquely named, making it easier to identify this specific type of error. While the pass statement means that the class doesn't add any new functionality, it just simply creates a custom exception type. Now, on our try block, so in our try block attempts to raise a custom exception of type my custom error with a message, a custom error occurred. So it raises a trigger on my custom error exception and passes control to our except block. No? So on our except block naman, the except block catches the my custom error as E, part assigned variable on our exception, and prints the E message associated with the exception, which in the case a custom error occurred. So this code defines a custom exception class my custom error to represents a unique type of error. So the try except naman, so on this block raises and handle this custom error and printing the associated error message in the exception occurs. So that's how my custom exception works. So let's see the output on this code. Ayan. I-run natin. And ito yung output. So yung magdi-display the custom error occurred. That's all. So now we are in the last part of the exception handling. We will be talking about the exception chaining. So ano ba si exception chaining? Paano ba natin i-code? So ito, mayroon tayong example code ng exception chaining. So where one error is raised and caught, and then a new error is raised in response. So linking to the new error back to the original one. So yan si exception chaining. So ito yung example code natin on our try block. Okay, so it attempts the value error, no? It attempts to raise the value error with a message initial error. So this part triggers the value error exception, which transfer the control to the except block. So in our except block, it catches the value error. No? Raised in our try block and assigns to the variable e. So inside this block, a new runtime error is raised with a message a new error occurred from e. Part links to the new runtime error, which is from the original value error, no? Creating a chain between the two exception. So this means that when an error message from the runtime error is printed or logged, it will include both the runtime and the original value error, showing a context of how the error are related. Okay. So, itest natin yung code natin. So, ito yung mangyayari dyan. So, ayan, para makita natin. So, here. So, ito yung code niya. Okay. So, we have here our exception chaining. So, the code raises first the value error, which is our initial value, initial error, no? Ayan yung value error niya. And the except block catches the value error. So by doing that, this value error raises to the new runtime error, chaining to the original from our E. Ayan. E. And prints our runtime error, a new error code. So this approach helps track the multiple related exception, making the debugging easier by preserving the history errors. Okay, that's all for our exception handling, and I hope you learned something for today's topic. Thank you.